You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela
and Marchelle,
episode number 126.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another awesome episode of the Keep the Weight Off podcast. How are you today, Marchelle?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am looking forward to having some high school friends visit me. So I'm getting ready for that. I'm super, super excited. They're not from the Pacific Northwest, so I get to show them the beauty of this place, and I just love it.
Oh, yeah. That sounds exciting. I'm also anticipating some family coming up from California, and we're going to show them the Pacific Northwest. So we're going to be doing, it's pretty much the same thing. That's going to be great.
Well, it's the season to be in the Pacific Northwest. Like there's no place else in the world. It's the end of July, August. Like there's no better place to be in the world than here. And, you know, so many parts of the country are like dying of heat right now. We're warm, but we're not like overly hot. So it's great. It's perfect.
No, it's been a beautiful summer so far.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get down to business. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that's actually sort of controversial. So I'm kind of excited about this. And this subject touches the hearts of lots and lots of people, probably all of us actually, but particularly women. And that's this whole idea of health at every size. So this is a movement that would seem to be all about self-acceptance and understanding that healthy bodies come in all sizes and that our society places way too much emphasis on a certain very specific, very thin look, right? And I want to say from the outset that I completely agree with this idea that we need to learn how to accept our bodies for what they are. I can't tell you how much I've wrestled with my own body image over the years. So for many of us, particularly for women, but I know it happens for men too, because I've seen it. We get messages at very early ages that we should look a certain way and we should have a certain shape. And I can remember very clearly when I was in high school and I'd read 17 magazine. It was like my favorite magazine.
I remember that magazine.
Do you?
Yes, very well. Yes.
I don't even know if it's still around. It might be, but this is the 70s.
I hope it's not around still.
Yeah, really. Well, there's probably worse things around now, but
yeah, I'm sure.
Think about the 1970s and the Twiggy era. You know, these girls were thin and beautiful, and they were wearing really cute clothes. And I'd look at those pictures and then I'd look at my own body in the mirror and I'd be like, I don't really match that. My hips were too big. My bust was too small. My face wasn't pretty enough. And so this began my dieting years. So many of our patients and online clients talk about starting their first diets at even much younger ages than I did. Sometimes as early as 9 or 10. One woman told me she was 5 or 6.
Wow.
So they would start by going to like Weight Watchers meetings with their moms, and they're trying to use their willpower to starve themselves thin, right? So I think most women have been through something like this, and it can lead down really horrific paths.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I've told my story about this. So this subject is, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts and emotions and opinions about this subject myself. So
yeah. Well, think about what triggers this for us. It was just a magazine, right? It's pictures in a magazine. I can't imagine how it must be for today's preteens and teenagers who are bombarded every day with messages from the internet and various social media platforms. Like, you should look like this. And here's a filter to help you look like this. And I know that young kids are, they're like getting implants at very young ages. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And my heart just goes out to kids these days. Like, I have 2 nieces that are really struggling. And so the pressure to conform to these rigid standards is absolutely enormous.
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't even imagine. Like, so I was raised in California, and that being raised in California just was bad enough. I couldn't imagine these days with, the social media platforms and the pressure, just the kids these days. I just feel my heart goes out to them.
Yeah.
Just the pressures that they have. Yeah.
And you were raised in Northern California, not Southern California.
Yeah, Northern California.
And you still felt all of that pressure.
It's still, we still
everywhere.
We still had all the pressures of,
it's
Hollywood,
pervasive.
and it was a lot.
So here's what happened. Some activists got together. They were well-intentioned, I'm sure, and they developed a movement called Health at Every Size. It's called HAES for short. So Health at Every Size. And the idea of this movement is to celebrate the various forms and shapes of the human body, which is great, particularly the feminine human body. And I absolutely love this idea because we do need to celebrate all of the various shapes and sizes. This movement is a philosophy and approach to health and wellness that challenges this traditional emphasis on weight loss as the primary indicator of health. It promotes the idea that individuals of all body shapes and sizes can be healthy and can accept themselves totally without focusing on weight reduction. So I looked it up, and there are 6 key principles of the Health at Every Size movement. The first principle is body acceptance. So Health at Every Size advocates believe in promoting body acceptance and self-love, regardless of a person's weight or size or appearance. They reject the notion that one's worth or health is determined solely by their body weight. And I cannot agree more with this one. How about you, Marchelle?
Yeah, I agree with this as well.
Yeah. So perfect. Love it. The second key principle is that it is health-focused. So this movement emphasizes adopting healthy behaviors and habits rather than focusing on weight loss as the primary goal. So the movement encourages individuals to engage in balanced eating, regular physical activity, stress management, and other health-promoting practices. And this one I agree with too. You always hear me talking about how we shouldn't focus on weight loss. We should focus instead on that unhealthy visceral fat, the belly fat, and work at getting that off. But I will say that I worry about the term balanced eating. Okay. Now, why would I say that? Shouldn't you have a well-balanced diet? Well, I've seen Coca-Cola ads that say that it's fine to have a Coke in the context of an overall balanced, healthy diet and exercise program, which I think is pure BS. That's food marketers, right? Never mind that Coca-Cola and other sugary soda beverages are highly addictive, and most people have a hard time regulating their intake of these beverages once they get started and once they become addicted. So you wouldn't say it's fine to smoke a cigarette in the context of an overall healthy breathing plan. So I'm just suggesting here that these terms, balanced and moderation, when it comes to addictive processed foods and beverages, don't always work for many people. So we have to be really careful with the idea of balanced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something that I've heard, this kind of made me think that, is sometimes when patients come in, they say, okay, well, I'm going to switch to Diet Coke instead.
Yeah.
So they think that's more well-balanced. So, when you don't know, you don't know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Diet Coke at least doesn't have the sugar that's going to jack your insulin levels up sky high.
It doesn't, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not part of a well-balanced diet.
Right. I agree. It's better than sugary soda, but it's not as good as water. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Principle number 3 is weight neutrality. So the Health at Every Size movement challenges the assumption that weight loss is necessary for improved health. Instead, it encourages weight neutrality, acknowledging that bodies naturally come in various shapes and sizes, and health outcomes can vary widely among individuals. So this is where I part ways a little bit.
Yes, I have a problem with that too. Yep.
Yeah, I agree that bodies naturally come in various shapes and sizes, no question about that. And health outcomes vary, no question. But remember, obesity is a disease and not a character flaw. The research shows very clearly that overweight and obesity is dangerous to your health. And that weight loss, or more accurately, fat loss, is necessary for improved health. If you look at the mortality data, that means the death data, you find that people with obesity are at higher risk of dying at younger ages. So, for example, they did a study at McGill University in Canada. It was published in 2014. And they looked at the relationship between body weight and life expectancy. And they found that obesity reduces life expectancy by up to 8 years. So, for example, let's say if you were at a normal weight, your life expectancy would be 85 years old. If you have obesity, that means that instead you would die at 77 years old. That's a lot of years of joyful living to miss out on. And I was thinking about this because my dad died when he was 77 from prostate cancer, and his brother is still alive and into his 80s now. And sometimes I find myself feeling jealous because my uncle is alive and kicking and 84, and he's in perfect health. And he likes to say, I'm living the dream. So I don't want to underestimate what this means when we say it can take all of these years off your life. So my father is missing out on seeing his grandchildren growing up and getting older. Like, he's missed out on a lot. He didn't die from obesity. He died from prostate cancer. But my point is that those years are important. Okay. So don't underestimate that. Does that make sense, Marchelle?
Yes.
Okay. So the study authors also noted that if you recognize that these people may also develop diabetes or cardiovascular disease earlier in life, this excess weight can rob them of nearly 2 decades of healthy life. So it's not just the early death, it's 2 decades of sort of suffering with medical problems before the early death. So they're spending a lot of time suffering with pain and disability, having to visit doctors frequently, having to work at managing their disease. And it was particularly these 2 diseases, cardiovascular disease, which means heart attacks and strokes, and diabetes, that led to the reduction in healthy years of life. The study authors also noticed that the heavier people were, the more years of life they lost. So people who were overweight, so that means a body mass index between 25 and 30, lost an average of 3 years of life. Those who were a little heavier with a body mass index between 30 and 40 lost 6 years of life. And those with severe obesity or a body mass index over 40 lost up to 8 years of life. Okay, so it was sort of stratified based on the severity of the disease. Another interesting aspect of the study is that the authors found that the age at which the excess weight started coming on was important. So the worst outcomes were in those who gained their weight at earlier ages. And this breaks my heart because we're seeing childhood obesity rates just skyrocket. So the author said the pattern is clear. The more in individual ways and the younger their age, the greater the effect on their health. In terms of life expectancy, we feel being overweight is as bad as cigarette smoking. Okay, so it's pretty clear when you look at actual data, the disease of obesity is dangerous and needs to be taken seriously. Does that mean we need to shame people who have this disease? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. Okay? But we do need to recognize that this idea that weight loss is necessary for improved health, it's actually true. So weight neutrality, meaning it's okay to weigh excess, needs to be questioned. So not that we're going to judge people or shame people about it, but that we need to understand that people with excess weight are actually at higher risk developing disease earlier and having death earlier than they would if they had a more normal weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, so in my opinion, did we need to start a movement, to combat, sexism? Yeah, I think we do, because I think that, women have had the pressure of, looking a certain way for since the beginning of time, right?
Right.
But I think that saying, beautiful women come in all shapes is one thing. I think saying that they come in all sizes is a different thing. I think we're talking apples and oranges. There's two different things here. And they kind of got lumped into one sum here, because I don't believe that healthy people come in all sizes. Because I personally know that, when I weighed over 200 pounds, I did not feel healthy. I did not feel proud of my body. I felt horrible in my own skin. I did not, but I also didn't want people to judge me, and I didn't want people to make me feel ashamed as well. So, like I said, I don't think we have enough time to really deep dive and, pick this completely apart. But I think that, there's two different words that are sort of lumped together, shapes and sizes. And I think that they mean two different things here.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that there are people who naturally will carry more weight than other people.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that they are unhealthy. But most people who are struggling with the disease of obesity have a disease that needs to be treated. So this is where I kind of differ a little bit with this health at every size movement.
And that's what I would still call a shape, though, Angela. I would still say, people who are healthy that carry more weight, I would still call that a different shape. Now, like I said, when we get into different sizes and we're going up in size and size and size, I do think that we get out of the realm of, just body acceptance. I think we get into the unhealthy realm. And so that's a whole different topic.
Yeah. Okay. Principle number 4 of the health at every size movement is respect for diversity. So the health at every size movement recognizes and respects the diversity of human bodies and the wide range of factors that contribute to individual health, and it rejects weight-based discrimination and bias. I couldn't agree more with this one. No one should be subjected to discrimination because they have a disease or because of the shape of their bodies. Absolutely. Got it. We're in agreement.
Yes, we are. 100%.
Okay. Principle number 5 is an evidence-based approach. So health at every size is grounded in scientific research and evidence. It highlights studies that demonstrate the limitations and ineffectiveness of traditional weight-focused approaches and the potential harm caused by weight stigma. So this I'm not so sure about. So I have training as an epidemiologist, and so I know all the ways that studies can be interpreted and misinterpreted. And so if it highlights certain studies and ignores a body of evidence to the contrary, that's not what we call evidence-based. So I have to be careful about this. So we always want to be looking at a body of evidence. Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So yes, I agree that in many cases, and I am a perfect example of this idea of dieting to reach a certain weight ends up causing more harm than good. No question. Okay.
I agree.
So
I definitely
there's
agree.
just so many nuances to this. It's really, really hard to, say this is black and this is white. It just like there's a lot of shades of gray in all of this. Okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay. So number 6 is the focus on well-being. So rather than aiming for a specific weight or body size, health at every size prioritizes overall well-being, including mental, emotional, and physical health. So I'd absolutely agree with this, but I will say that sometimes the disease of obesity is not obvious. And you can think you're healthy when you really aren't. So the truth is that if you're eating processed junk food, no matter how much you weigh or what size you are, you're not going to be healthy and you're not going to experience well-being. So this movement has gained popularity, especially in the fields of body positivity and eating disorder treatment, and some segments of the healthcare industry. Advocates argue that weight-centric approaches to health can perpetuate body dissatisfaction and eating disorders and weight cycling, which is the yo-yo dieting that people do. And that can have negative effects on physical and mental health. And I agree that that is true. I first noticed body positivity movement in ads for Dove soap. Did you see these ads?
I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. Many years ago. I was thrilled. They had photos of women of all shapes and sizes in their underwear, really celebrating the beauty of the feminine form. And of course, that beautiful skin needs to be washed with gentle moisturizing soap, right? So I think that the marketing geniuses that Dove hired were amazing. And they tapped into the idea of the beauty of the feminine form and celebrating all shapes and sizes of women, which I think is great.
Me too.
Yeah. But, there's a shadow side to all of this. So the body positivity movement that would seem to be so good at helping us to stop dieting and love and embrace our bodies. And the shadow side is this. For many people, it gives them an excuse to keep eating junk food. Hey, I'm not going to worry about my size anymore. Health at any size, right? So let's DoorDash pizza and let's eat Oreos and ice cream and let's not worry about our weight anymore. Right. This is the kind of thing that can happen. And it becomes a perfect excuse for the primitive brain to continue to go out and seek its dopamine hit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I've actually had these crazy thoughts that I wonder if the food industry's behind this.
Yeah,
right. Hey, let's not worry about our health. Let's not worry about how big we are. Let's just eat whatever we want. And all of us who are railing against the food industry for producing toxic, addictive junk that's killing us, and we're trying to educate people to stop eating these foods. And now we have this health at every size movement that says, you shouldn't have to worry about what you eat. Celebrate whatever size you are. And go ahead and eat what you want, or more accurately, what your primitive brain wants, right? So I don't know. It's just, we have to be super, super careful with this. We just do. Okay?
Well, I think that the idea behind this whole movement is great, except for the weight neutrality part. That, everything else makes a whole lot of sense to me. There's just that one part of it that I think needs to be taken out or changed in some way.
And changed in some way.
Yeah.
So when it comes to body positivity and celebrating all of the various beautiful forms of the human body and not trying to shoot for some silly, rigid, skinny standard of feminine beauty, I couldn't agree more with the health at every size movement. As someone who developed an eating disorder trying to lose weight and get thin all those years ago, I completely understand why this movement is so popular. And I can see how this movement can be used as an excuse to not address the true underlying health issues that are present in people with obesity, and how it could prevent people from getting the help they need to get this disease under control. We have effective treatments now. With the right support and with the help of a good obesity medicine specialist, and in some cases a bariatric surgeon, anyone can get this disease under control and live a long, happy, healthy life if they want to. This is what we do all day, every day, right, Marchelle? This is what we do.
Right. I think if you look at this, you could get healthy at any size. I think that's like a better way of looking at it.
Ooh, that's a great, let's just rename it. Instead of health at every size, get healthy at every size.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, I do also want to say that there are some critics of this movement that are concerned that the movement could generate bias against people who are actually working at weight loss to improve their health. So there's this concern that in promoting body acceptance, we could really do a disservice to people who would actually benefit from weight management. So this is a really delicate, tricky balance here. Here, if you want my take on this, here's how I like to think about it. So imagine for a moment, this is for all of our listeners, imagine for a moment what your body would look like if you'd never been introduced to processed food. So say you lived on some deserted island and you'd eaten only whole foods your entire life. Foods that came directly from nature, your family hunted and fished, you had chickens, you grew your own food, you never had access to candy and soft drinks and fast food. You weren't getting huge dopamine hits from what you ate, and you wouldn't have cravings, so you wouldn't overeat. What would your body look like in its natural state? Just think about that.
This may come as a surprise to you, but I actually have thought about this before.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have.
Cool. Well, if we were all eating whole natural foods all the time, we would still all be different sizes. we're all genetically programmed to be a certain height and to develop a certain amount of muscle mass and fat mass. Some people would be naturally very muscular and heavier, and some people would be naturally very thin, and most people would be somewhere in the middle. And the cat's weighing in on this too. So just like our height, we would all be different weights, okay? Some of us are really tall, some of us are pretty short, most people are somewhere in the middle. So this is what I want us to celebrate: the natural diversity of a healthy, well-nourished human body. No one should suffer discrimination because they have a disease. And no one should feel like they're not celebrating their body if they choose to treat their disease and lose fat to come back into their natural state as much as possible. That's how I want you to think about this, okay? So please do not use the health at every size principles to justify continuing to eat processed junk food and damage your body with toxic food. And please do use health at every size principles to love and celebrate your beautiful human body, whatever size it might be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Great. Do you have any other comments at all?
No, that's it.
I think
for me.
I'm done. I think that
me too.
We have addressed this, at least to my satisfaction right now.
Yeah, me too.
I reserve the right to do another podcast later if I learn more about this movement. So, all right. Thanks for listening today, everyone, and celebrate your beautiful human body. And we'll catch you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.